your windows. Lock your doors. Keep your loved ones near. Time is running out. It's here for fear.
Thank you for joining us. This is Ear for Fear, and I'm Donovan.
And I'm Rick. And today we're going to be talking about 2003's A Tale of Two Sisters.
Okay, I think it's important to discuss the plot of this film right at the top. This movie can be quite confusing. There's two sisters in the film, Soo-mi and Soo-jung. They have a pretty close relationship. The father is in this movie as well as the stepmother. The stepmother seems to have a pretty complicated relationship with our main sister, Soo-mi. There's a lot of tension here, and we'll find out very shortly why that is. If we take it from the very, very top and what we don't see until the end of the film, it is important to discuss this now so we have context for everything else in the movie. The stepmother, Yoon-ju, is kind of responsible for the death of Soo-mi and Soo-young's actual mother, and for the death of Soo-young, who is in fact dead throughout basically this entire film. So the animosity between these two characters is explained right there. We also find out that most of the film, Yoon-ju is actually a manifestation of Soo-mi's multiple personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder within this film, along with Soo-yoon also being a manifestation. So this one character is essentially fulfilling the personalities of three characters. Two of them are real, but we don't actually see the real characters until later on in the film. Up until then, it's really just one character, essentially, I would say, going through reliving trauma. Yeah. The father is aware that there's an issue. He doesn't quite know. What do you think, Dad?
Yeah, he's...
Is he totally aware of the personality disorder?
I think he is. And I think that's where those... I think where the pills come in. I think he knows of it, and he just doesn't know how to deal with it.
Which is a fair thing to say, because we're not experts in this field either. I don't think we would know how to deal with it, or even necessarily how to talk about it. But we do want to bring it up for context. This is not something we have any experience in, and we'll kind of leave it at that. As our own opinions for how it's portrayed in the film, as a filmic device, it seems to be working quite well.
Yeah.
As to how this is for actual people afflicted with dissociative identity disorder, and I'm not sure if the word afflicted is a strong term there.
Yeah, probably not.
We're not exactly sure how accurate this is.
Yeah.
But it does make for a good movie. So the bulk of this film is actually sort of the manifestation of one character and her dealing with the trauma of the loss of her real mom and her sister, and how that affects the relationship with her father and with her stepmother. One quick thing that's also very important: the real mom died as a result of the stepmom and the real and father's engagement. So the mother is terminally ill. I suppose the father and the real mother get separated, but the real mom is still being taken care of by an in-home nurse who will be the stepmom, and that leads to the real mom committing suicide in the room of the dead sister, and that then leads to the sister's death, who, in her panic, tries to get her mom off of the noose in an armoire.
Yeah,
and then she gets crushed by the armoire.
Yeah, wardrobe, is that what they call it? A
sure.
wardrobe. Yeah, same.
It's
same
like a
thing.
closet
yeah.
that's a That's furniture.
Yeah.
It falls on top of her.
Yeah.
And then the stepmom has an opportunity to save them by calling for, or I'm sorry, save the sister by calling for help. The mom is already dead at this point.
Yeah.
But she does not because the alive, or who will be the alive sister, Soo-mi, essentially gives attitude to the stepmother.
Yeah.
And so the stepmother then lets the sister die.
Yes.
And that happens at the end of the film, but it's important to establish the context because this movie is quite confusing, not knowing the backstory. This is one of those movies where you kind of open it up one piece at a time and get the full picture.
Yeah.
But we want to be able to talk about this movie unencumbered without having to jump around back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe that's the bulk of it. Am I missing anything here?
No, I think that's plenty.
Okay, having explained the film, or trying to explain the film, right at the top, Dad, I know this is the movie that I picked out.
Yeah.
I believe this is the first movie I picked out, I picked out Dead Alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, this is a movie that I was familiar with vaguely. Watching it for this podcast was the first time I had watched it.
Same with me. We had. I know there was an American remake of this back in 2009 called The Uninvited, which I saw, and I just completely forgot about it because it wasn't that good and it was very forgettable.
How do you think that compares with this one?
You know what? I saw it one time. It once was plenty for me. I felt I wasted an hour and a half of my time.
Okay.
Yeah. And that would have been probably around the time it came out.
Well,
if I remember, I think I saw it on, I rented it, DVD, Blu-ray, whatever it was, 10 years ago. And it just, I didn't even know, first of all, that A Tale of Two Sisters and was, the Korean version, and then Uninvited was I didn't even know this.
Well, this movie's an hour and 50 minutes. Do you feel like you wasted an hour and 50 minutes with this movie?
No, I enjoyed this movie.
Okay.
I like this movie, but like you said earlier, it's confusing. I kind of feel that I'm pretty good at following, especially horror movies and what's happening. And I was a bit confused what was going on here because I felt some stuff was just unexplained. And I found myself after watching it, and I liked it. I jumped online as well, and some stuff started to make sense as I was reading it, but a lot of this stuff isn't explained.
There's a few things that are pretty important that aren't explained explicitly in the movie. And I'm not sure if there's a culture divide, if maybe we're supposed to know some things,
maybe,
or if this is just a problem with the film. I'm almost leaning towards the latter.
Yeah, it's possible.
Because the mom is terminally ill. We don't actually know that. We actually don't even know that the stepmom is a nurse.
No.
Maybe by her outfit we're supposed to be able to tell, but I'm not familiar with nurse garb in Korea.
Yeah, I mean, I think about 45, 50 minutes in when they're going through the where Sumi, the oldest sister, finds she goes and gets her mother's things out of their warehouse. I think that's on the property. They call it a warehouse, but to me it was strange.
It looks more like a greenhouse.
It just looked like a greenhouse, like some rundown greenhouse with stuff in it. And they're going through the stuff, and she's finding old photographs and necklaces and stuff like that. And then you see the stepmother in it. And you see she's standing there with doctors, and she's in her nurse garb. So yeah, at that point is really when you kind of can put it, it together that she was a nurse, but we don't know she was the nurse that was taking care of the mother while the mother was deathly ill, and she was essentially dying.
Right.
Which is, it's just...
I agree with you, too. I feel like this is something that could have been explained a little bit more explicitly towards the top of the film as opposed to the very end.
Yeah.
I don't think that ruins the movie at all. I think that my biggest concern with issues like this in film is it maybe takes the viewer out of it for a bit as they're trying to keep up with the film. That works for a lot of movies, let's say like your Inceptions, where the fun of the film is piecing everything together. But for a horror film, it might not work because you're maybe taking them out of the creeps and the scares.
Because you're thinking too much.
Yeah, when you're trying to understand the relationships of the characters.
Yeah.
And this could have been fixed quite easily. Maybe I will say that this film is very seeped in uncomfortableness. So maybe it's to the movie's credit that they're making us think so hard. Because I will say when watching this movie, I felt uncomfortable almost the entire time.
Did you? I don't think I did a little bit. There were some stuff that I felt at times was a little uncomfortable, but no, not
the dinner scene in particular.
That one was intense.
Like the lady has a seizure almost out of nowhere, and it's anything could have.
What? Okay, so what do you think caused the seizure?
I don't.
Was it just?
This is another thing of those movies where it's just not explained, and to the movie's credit, it doesn't need to.
I mean, because her husband went to grab pills, so okay, then this happens to her. But originally, it seemed very surprising to him that it was happening. So that's what puzzled me.
Now that we're talking about it, I think it has to do with the fact that this house is haunted.
Yeah, that's what I think.
A lot of movies seem to have this idea where, the house or the place where something traumatic happened as a source of trauma that is then sort of bringing out a manifestation of the trauma towards its inhabitants or even guests.
Yeah.
We even see this in movies like Western movies like Poltergeist.
Yeah.
So I actually think that maybe it has to do with the death of the mother and the death of Soo-jung, maybe triggering her seizure. The movie doesn't explicitly say that. In fact, this movie explicitly doesn't say a lot, but we do see who I think we're supposed to believe is sort of like a crispy version of Soo-jung underneath the sink.
You think that's who that was?
I think that's who it's supposed to be. I think she's supposed to be rotted, but she definitely looks like burnt.
Yeah, I mean,
we also see her on the dinner table. Yeah. And there's no other
where
girls.
I think we're jumping forward to.
Let's jump all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think I actually enjoyed that part a lot because once I believe it was her uncle and then his wife, and once they left after the seizure, and then they're driving in the vehicle, and he's asking her if she's okay. And she says that she saw a figure underneath the sink. That kind of creeped me out. Now just talking about it, my hair's kind of I love stuff like that. That stuff I love because were we able to see the figure when she was on the ground having the seizure? Or
there's two shots, and on the second shot, I do believe we see her.
We do see it, but I wanted to go back and pause it to see, and I didn't. I wanted to see if we could see it because that's the stuff we've talked about this in the past. I love stuff like that where it's almost like this. It's this shot, and it could be dark. Let's just say, for instance, the Conjuring comes to mind, where the girls are in their bedroom and they think they see a figure in the corner, and it's like this slow kind of shot where maybe it's coming a little bit into focus, and you think you see a figure. I don't remember if that happened here. Now we definitely see it on the second part, which was creepy. I love little stuff like that.
The more we talk about horror movies, the more I especially the movies we've talked about so far, the more I'm realizing that a lot of horror doesn't work for me. So this podcast is almost like me realizing what works for me in a horror film. And I've already discussed that things being where they shouldn't be is very, very gnarly for me.
Yeah.
I can't handle that. I think another thing that gets me is this idea of having to face something that you're trying to run away from, but the machinations of your life or your brain, or let's say in this case, the house and the ghost are forcing you to relive. And this is kind of, in filmic terms, this will just be the camera forcing you to stare at something you don't want to look at. For me, that's the mom in the bedroom, sort of crawling on the ground and then floating upwards onto the bed,
Oh, yes. Oh, gosh.
Just the movie's forcing me to look at it when I don't want to.
Yeah.
Same thing with the girl, or who we're going to assume is Soo-jung,
Yeah.
underneath the sink. Just the idea that someone that shouldn't be there is there and just been there this whole time, and is causing, like maybe a seizure for someone. That hurts me too. Yeah. And it gets into that idea of Hereditary, which I believe we've talked about on this podcast, and The Conjuring, where the camera is forcing you into a confrontation. And for me, as a very non-confrontational person, that scares me to death. Yeah. Where it makes me do it. So like when it comes to the actual scares and the creeps of this movie, I found it very effective. I found myself uncomfortable through pretty much the entire film. And when the movie was turning on the scare button, that I was genuinely creeped out.
Yeah, and there wasn't a ton of scares, but there was enough scares that I felt it was a good amount. They didn't overdo it like some movies. They just it's this constant, I don't know, these types of and we see them in a lot of certain types of movies. I can think of, like Shudder was one, you could say The Grudge or Ring or Ringu, that it's that character. It's always, it's normally a woman, pale skin, long black hair. The hair is usually in the eyes, and we've seen it a ton of times, but it's very effective. And I think what I read or I heard, it's a very common like folk tale. Whether it's, whether it could be, say Thailand or Japan, or in this instance, I think it's South Korea. This particular story was a Korean folktale, and it's been done several times over the years.
Oh, you see this a lot. You even see it in video games too.
Yeah. And this particular, and I won't even try to pronounce it, but this particular folktale, it's gone back. I was looking at this. They did a 1972 movie that was very similar to this. They changed the story up, of course.
Can you try to pronounce the word for me?
I'm not
then I can probably fix it.
I'm not trying to pronounce it at all.
It's not Shinigami, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, it's not. I'm not even going to try. And,
all right.
And for anyone out there, we apologize if we're butchering some of these words, because I know our two main characters are.
What about Monogatari?
No, it's not that.
Damn.
It's
those are like some of the two Japanese words I know that have to do with like
I'm
ghosts
not even,
and stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm not even going to try, because I don't even think I'd even get it close. But what I read was that it's based off of a book, but it's like it's a Korean folktale, and they've done this several times over the years. There's probably anywhere from 6 to 8 types. They're not like remakes. Everyone takes, it's like our fairy tale, and they take it and they change it up a little bit and put a spin on it. And that's what they did with The Tale of Two Sisters.
Now, are all these stories sort of centered around like a traumatic death, and then the ghost of that person then coming back to enact revenge? Because that's kind of what's happening here too.
Yeah, a little bit. What I read was, one particular story was the mother dies, the father remarries. There's two daughters. Of course, the stepmother hates them. The father has money, and he wants the girls gone so she can take it over. Well, what she does is her and the father have kids, and they have 3 boys, and the boys essentially kind of reshifts the power. And so she feels that now the girls are kind of slowly being pushed out. And so now, hey, you got 3 boys here. These boys are going to carry on the name. And so the girls kind of, that's what I had read.
Interesting.
And again, it's a super Cliff Notes version of the story, but this is a story that has been done for a long time in several different movies. But again, they changed it up again. There was one I was reading. It was 1972, and it was Two Sisters, and it's so they take the story and then they kind of put their own little spin on it, and that's what we're seeing in this one.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I find it, that's always what's cool about going into a different culture.
Yeah.
As a Western audience here in the States, we're not familiar with this type of stuff.
No, not at all.
So I actually kind of love the fact that this is like an age-old story with a little twist on it.
Yeah.
That's then introducing me to the fact that this is an older story.
Yeah.
With history on it. That's awesome. I kind of want to check out other stories in this
I know,
this vein.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, so this movie is, I find genuinely creepy. I've already talked about 2 scenes that kind of get to me. Now, you say you don't remember much about The Uninvited.
No, I'll be honest with you. I don't. If I had popped it back in and maybe watched it on I don't know, DVD or one of the streaming services, it'd probably come back to me. But I'm glad it didn't, because I wanted to go into this, and I didn't want to know a lot about this when we went into it.
Well, my point is that there are parts of this movie that are going to be hard to scrub out from my brain.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's the big old potato sack that's just all bloodied up.
Yeah, that one confused me a little bit as well. There were a lot of things like that really confused me, and I mean, let's try to go back a little bit. So we know that there was a tragedy. We know Sumi was in a hospital. She gets out of the hospital. She comes home with her father to this house, and it's really it's out in the country. It's out in the country, and it's sizable house. I guess it's not like a mansion or anything, but it's a good sized house.
For me, this is a mansion.
This is a mansion to you.
Yeah.
See, when I think mansion, I think of when we watched Hell Night.
Yeah.
And
I feel it.
Yeah, that's what I think of when I think mansion. But this was a sizable house, but it was out in the country, and they had a lot of land and stuff. But it didn't appear to be this lavish home, though.
I almost think I disagree. There's wallpaper all over the place. They have
I want to talk about the wallpaper.
They have an indoor greenhouse. They have what's essentially a crap ton of land with a bunch of like ponds and water. They've got a dock and a wharf.
They did the dock was
like this family doesn't look like they're made of money, but it seems that they do seem to have some sort of established wealth, because this is like, even if we go back, let's say this movie takes place contemporary. Let's just say it takes place in the year it came out, so 2003.
Yeah,
that's a ton of shit for one family to own.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. I think
also to be able to like afford an in-home nurse and just have like constant doctors all the time checking on your dying wife or ex-wife. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was and then the whole. And we'll get to some of the stuff that I just felt was just not cool.
There's a lot of not cool stuff.
There's not a cool stuff in this, and
so this movie is going to be kind of hard for us to talk about. I'm already thinking of one scene that,
and we're going to jump around a lot with this one. I think it's probably best if we do that. When Sumi gets back from, we know she's supposedly better now. She's back from the hospital. They get home. She doesn't get out of the car immediately. The father has to come around and knock on the window. Hey, are you coming? Eventually, she comes out, and then a little after that, her sister follows her. And I know we're pronouncing this wrong, but is it Soo-jung?
Soo-jung.
Let's just say Yen, and I know we're saying it wrong, but we're just, for the sake of this, we're going to say Sumi and Soo-yen. Soo-yen is the younger sister. Sumi is the older sister, and she's the one that just got out of the hospisptal. But immediately, and look, spoiler alert, immediately, I knew right away.
We talked about the movie.
I know, but I know, just in case they skip past the plot and the synopsis, I knew immediately we're looking at a ghost here. This just
big old detective dad over here.
Yeah. Well,
Well, if you've seen a million movies, you kind of get used to the language of film.
Yeah.
So, and you've seen stories like this before too.
I have.
When the dad is only obviously talking to one of the sisters, and then the sister doesn't interact with anything. She even comes out of the same car. You're getting clues like already that might be. Yeah. Be ringing a bell for someone who's seen a bunch of ghost stories before where, hey, spoiler or twist alert, this person is dead. Yeah. So I was getting vibes for that too.
Yeah.
I was just like, but the thing that throws a wrench in everything is the fact that the stepmother recognizes both sisters. And you're like, well, I guess I was wrong.
Well, you know what? I knew I wasn't wrong, because my gut was, my spidey senses were going off, and they're like, I'm like, no, this is definitely a ghost. But we know weird stuff is going on in this house. Can the stepmom see both of them?
And then we also know that the stepmom is taking pills at some point.
Exactly. And the father. The father even says something. We see him on the phone constantly. Yeah, she's not doing well. This isn't going good. And it's like, okay, are these pills that he's given the stepmother? Are they, does she start seeing things, and is she hearing things? And because she makes I think when they first sit down to have dinner, she says something about how she wants to invite so and so over, the girls. The girls would love to see them, or vice versa. And I'm like, okay. And there was really not much reaction to the father. So in my head was like, oh, he's thinking, damn, she's getting a little wacky here. Let me make sure she takes her pills. And he makes it a point to give her that right after dinner. So yeah, I was like, well, she's definitely a ghost, but hold on a second, his mom's seeing both of them. And that's what threw me off a bit on it. So we see there's that. I mean, we know that the two sisters are close. Sumi is definitely the protector of Soo-jung. We even see it and I don't know if you caught this, but when they first got home and they went out to the dock where the water was, there was a quick shot of Soo-jung's shin. Did you see that? The shin was bruised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, it was super faint.
You don't really think anything of it, though. You think kids are kids.
You think kids are kids,
Yeah.
But then it comes into play, later on.
Again, our little film logic brain should be like, this is there for a reason, every other thing in frame.
Yeah.
But you don't think about it in the moment.
No.
But it is just another one of those smart little subtle hints that this film is laying down to sort of hit you with that revelation at the end that she died in a traumatic way by being crushed by a wardrobe.
Yeah. But when Sumi finally comes in the house and she's looking around and she's kind of checking out the house, and then she goes up to Soo-jung's bedroom. And did you catch this? I don't know if they explained it, but she was looking around, and then she went into the closet, and it was literally 30 dresses, but there was only 2 of them, really. There was like 15 of the same dress and 50,
No, it was basically the same outfit. One was a top and one was a skirt.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
It looked to me like two dresses, but like I said, one was like maybe blue, one was green, and they were the same floral pattern, which is interesting here, because if you pay attention through the course of the movie and the home itself, all the wallpaper was very similar to that outfit or to those dresses. Mm-hmm. I would almost say exactly the same. But did they ever explain the dress situation other than?
No. And what's funny is Sumi doesn't really she wears mostly solid colors, if I'm remembering right.
She does, but we're talking about it was Soo-jung's room, so it would be Soo-jung's closet. And now, of course, we know, we don't know this, but we do know this, but we don't know this, that Soo-jung's dead. So, but we think, people, kind of think that, oh, maybe she's alive, and so, hey, what are you doing in her closet, and why are all her clothes different?
But that's also Sumi talking to herself.
She is, but we don't know this until later on, right?
Sure.
I mean, so it's, so we don't know this until almost at the very end of the movie, Now going back, sure, I guess it makes some sort of sense, and the ending felt to me, it's like there was almost 3 different endings for this. That's that kind of. It's not that I didn't enjoy it, because the ending, the very almost last scene I really enjoyed, and God, it was very sad, but there was almost 2 or 3 of them, and it just felt like it was too many things happening. You know what I mean? It's like throwing some sort of climax and then another climax. It's like in The Exorcist. The spider walk that we've talked about in the past. It's a super duper creepy scene. It's very unsettling.
It's also a deleted scene.
It's a deleted scene, mm-hmm. and it's because William Friedkin. Yeah, I can't remember who directed. I think it's William Friedkin. He said that he is he the director or the writer? I always get him confused. But they said they purposely cut it out. It's because you have 2 climactic parts. The mother opens up the door, finds out that her boyfriend has died. He's fell out of the window, and he's fallen down the steps, and he's broken his neck. So that's very climactic. It's like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden and then she turns, and then Regan, Linda Blair, is is the spider walking down the stairs. They felt it didn't work because it was too close to each other.
So you think there's a big old pacing issue at the end of this movie?
I do.
Yeah.
Too many. I think I counted 3.
So
like we could have ended 3 different parts.
So for you, the 3 endings would be the stepmom, like the real stepmom dying to the real ghost of Soo-jung. The second ending would be the revelation that the real stepmother led to the death of the real mom and the real Soo-jung. And the third would be what, the walk or at the dock? Maybe. Or her crying.
I almost felt that we should have seen the scene with the stepmother and Soo-mi. And of course, we know the mother had hung herself, and Soo-jung, found her. I kind of felt that should have been ahead of what we got.
I'm not disagreeing with you here.
Yeah.
I felt like this movie. I think I was about 20 minutes left until the end of the movie, and then I just checked the time because I go to the bathroom a lot during these things.
Yeah.
And so I looked and I was like, oh yeah, I've got 17 minutes left. And then I still have a lot of questions left. And then it turns out we get a whole bunch of like exposition dump towards the end of the film. So I'm not disagreeing with you here. I do think that this is maybe the biggest issue in the film is that we have about a 10-minute scene that might have been best suited earlier in the film to give greater context to the scarier stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
And so we're not, thinking a little too hard, or I'm sorry, I don't think it's the issue of thinking. It's the fact that the film is making us ask questions that might be easily answered because the answers to these questions aren't necessarily interesting in and of themselves.
Yeah.
So why not give those answers to us sooner in the film?
Yes.
So we have a greater understanding of the scary stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
Or why something might mean something.
And to me it could have been as simple as, like I said, it could have been just the scene with the wardrobe falling on the sister. That could have been, let's say, 10 or 15 minutes earlier. Then I felt it would have. I'm not going to say it would have made more sense, but it just maybe it would have just made for a better ending. It just didn't feel right to me, and I don't know if that was just a mistake by when they made it. I don't know. I mean,
it's really difficult to have a story sort of split like that. You get your Breaking Bads, your Vince Gilligans, and your Peter Goulds that are able to do that very, very well. You can go to like pretty much any season of Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad and get these scenes that are separated from the narrative by a huge amount of time that work within like the context or like the thematics of that particular episode or even within the season. But in a 2-hour film, you have to make sure if you're doing that you're doing it in the best possible way.
Yeah.
And I think we're of the opinion that if this was moved somewhere in the film, even cut and moved into the film, that it might have worked a little bit better.
I think it would have. I wanted to. How do I explain it? It's like I know this tragic thing happened.
Well,
and
the real stepmom dies before we even get to see any of this stuff.
You mean yes. And that's what I didn't like either. I felt like it was almost like it just was out of sequence. Like it would have made more sense to, okay, we see this, this is why, this is the mother dies and the younger sister dies, and this is why. Then we see the stepmother dying and we're like, okay, good. But we don't see that until after the fact. And so it almost gyps us a little bit.
Yeah.
It takes away this feeling like this damn bitch,
Well, the thing about the movie is that the movie is painting the stepmother as a giant asshole throughout the entire film.
Yeah.
Then we learn that this is a manifestation of Soo-mi.
Yeah.
And we know that her perspective of this character is colored by the fact that something off screen happened between the two. We don't see it yet because we see it at the very end of the movie.
We don't.
So when the real stepmom finally shows up towards the end of the film before the exposition dump, we like she's actually kind of cool, but because she does seem to care about Soo-mi.
Yeah, she seems, and they did this, of course, on purpose. That you can definitely tell there's a difference between the two.
I mean, she's dressed in like a dress suit.
Yeah, very professional looking, almost like a businesswoman. Her demeanor is different. Nothing like Soo-mi has, I guess, like this manifested in her head. Yeah,
yeah, like the stepmom is like this vapid, harmful, abusive person.
Well, if you
but then we get to see like the real one for a few minutes before the exposition. I mean, she seems like really cool. She
seems nothing like Soo-mi has. She's manifested her, and I believe this is because we know their mother gets sick and she's dying. And then, the nurse is going to be the stepmother. And she's, I'm going to say a living nurse. And they even had a room inside the house that was designated. And remember on the door, it had a red cross. So it's like, she needed care 24/7. So, so the nurse or the stepmother and the father, they develop this relationship, which happens in stuff like this when there is, he knows his wife is going to die. So, I mean, she's sick. He who do you turn to? You turn to, this caregiver. And so, so that they have this relationship. What I didn't like was the fact that they got engaged. They don't really explain this at all. We know that they married, I guess, and but they're engaged while the mother is still living in the house and she's dying, which is just completely screwed up. So in Soo-mi's head, she has made the stepmother this horrible monster. She's just this horrible person because who else would do something like that?
Yeah. Of course, this is like teenage person syndrome because the dad is also to blame, but the dad seems to get a free pass.
Yeah, he does.
But of course, it's the father figure. There's comfort in that.
Yeah.
And obviously this person seems to be like invading into her life and destroying everything. So that's why that happens.
Yeah.
But it just seems so easily avoidable, the death of this. I mean, both the mom and the sister, but especially the sister.
I mean, I think we knew mom was inevitable, right? We knew she was terminally ill. I mean, I don't know if it was really explained that way, but we know she was dying and she ended up taking her own life, which is really screwed up that she hung herself in her youngest daughter's, this wardrobe. This whatever we call in this thing.
This movie does a couple things that are very not cool.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like, look, I get it. You're dying anyways. Your husband is now with this woman, your nurse that's taking care of you, and you kill yourself. Okay, I understand that. And plus you're dying. You're terminally ill here. I get that. But why do you hang yourself in your daughter's room? That's bullshit. It's not cool at all. But
no, it isn't. I mean, we can sort of make the argument that a person that is terminally ill, arguably not mentally. Actually, we don't really know the specifics about her mental situation.
We don't know what she had.
But if you're dying, and you're going through some stuff with your ex-husband and your family, you can almost justify it. But I mean, even with those situations in mind, you gotta have this like lingering thought in your head while you're processing all this.
Yeah.
Will I be doing damage to my daughter? I mean, that has to be going through your head.
Yeah.
And if you really cared about your daughter, and it seems within the film that she does, you just wouldn't do it. Is this a problem with the movie? I don't think so, because the movie is so into the obfuscation of a lot of its plot specifics and even some of its character relationships that you can almost sort of hand wave this away and just be like, oh yeah, this is the movie doing another really shitty thing that's really hard to watch.
Yeah.
I don't know. I totally agree though. It sucks. It sucks that you have to see it.
It's terrible.
And then and then the fact that the sister then dies.
Yeah. Cause I mean,
with her mom and the wardrobe crushing her to death, not just like immediately dead. It takes her minutes to die.
She's suffering. She is suffering underneath her. That's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
And there's nothing she can do about it. you know?
Yeah, and this is sort of the difference between sort of Western and Eastern filmmaking. We're very shy about showing child death here in the States. Yeah. It seems to be far more common.
In most films they don't show it.
Yeah,
we know it's implied, but they don't show it.
Yeah,
and so, but yeah, I mean it to me, you know, and I hope we're not confusing the listeners here because we are definitely jumping around a lot. But
hey, this is a hard movie to talk about. Let's be real. This movie is already doing some weird, confusing stuff.
It was, and again, you know, like we said earlier, both you and I had to, once we you know stopped this thing once it was over with, we both did some reading because I needed to fill in those cracks. Because I left the movie going, no, I'm sorry, but some of this just doesn't make sense to me. And some of it did, some of it didn't. And
now, you left this movie, though, being like, I'm pretty sure I like that movie.
But right? I did. It's not that I didn't like the movie. And I don't feel like it completely, you know, ripped me off at the end.
Because we did the same exact thing with Happy Birthday to Me, except I think it was there to resolve, like, problems that the film... Like it was actively hurting the film, just how bad some of the decisions were.
Yeah.
But for this movie, I just want to be clear that I don't think necessarily these things are mistakes.
No, I don't think they are.
I think this movie works very, very well, despite some of the issues we're pointing out right now.
Yeah.
Just because the simple fact that the movie doesn't explicitly explain these things doesn't detract from the movie at all. I still like this movie a lot.
No, I did. I really did. I really enjoyed the movie. I just... It was creepy and visually it was very, you know, I know it doesn't sound weird because it's a horror movie, but it's very pretty at times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I watched this movie. I was like, oh yeah, I suckered my dad into watching a drama.
Yeah, what are they calling it? A psychological horror drama? I don't think so. I love there was that scene at the very beginning when the two sisters are they're at the dock in the water. That was a very really kind of pretty, you know, pretty scene, and it's such at the beginning that we know stuff isn't going to stay this way, but I just loved it. You know, there was little of those things sprinkled throughout. There was a scene. This wasn't a pretty scene, but I loved the camera angle on this when it's Sumi and her father kind of going at it, and if you noticed, it would be our left, but her right side, you know, right side of her face, you could see it as clear as day. It was almost, but I think it was dark. And I don't remember where they were talking, but it seemed like.
I think they were in Soo-jung's bedroom.
It was in her bedroom and it was dark. You could tell it was night. But the right side of her face was lit up. And then the left side was purposely in the dark and you couldn't see her eye. And I felt that meant something. I don't know what it meant, but
it could be as simple as the fact that she has multiple personalities.
It could be, you know. And now that we're talking about it, it's as simply as what we say about people is they have split personalities. In this particular scene, it's like her right side of her face is lit up, and the left side is so dark and gloomy. It's like a splitting down the middle of her face, and I knew it meant something, you know, going through this. Now again, at this time I didn't know she had this disorder, you know, where she's manifesting. You know, I didn't know this, but I knew that scene it meant something. And now that we're talking about it, you know, I think that's what it meant. It was a great camera. I love little camera angles like that.
What I like about this scene too is that this is the sister's bedroom, and earlier in the film we see that there's actually a lamp that gives out, you know, like a soft yellow light. Yeah. But when the father and Sumi are in the bedroom, it's harsh white. Yeah. Now, I don't know if a lot of people pay attention to like the sort of the white value of their light bulbs, but like a bright white is very discomforting. You'll like see that in department stores. Yeah. But for your home, if you're like bathing everything in white light, it's very odd. It almost feels like you're in a garage. It doesn't feel right. Yeah. As opposed to like a very soft yellow light that feels more comforting, and it just doesn't feel off. And so when I was in that scene, I was like, oh yeah, the yellow light is gone. It's all white light. And this is making a huge difference in the scene because I feel off balance. I feel off kilter. Yeah. And it was just something as simple as the actors in the room being bathed in this like pure white light for some reason.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot of, is as the movie plays out, we get, it's weird little things. It's like we know Soo-mi is having nightmares, and we're trying to piece together these images. We know that there's one particular image. I think she's out in the. I mean, it seems like it's over by their home because they're out in the country, and then we see this girl with the green dress. We see the smashed picture frame, but it's so fast, and we're trying to piece it all together. And then there's little things like that where almost like the house changes. Where in one scene we have it just looks so old and almost not, I don't like to say run down, just dated maybe. And then all of a sudden it almost looks like the house has changed. And I'm because we don't know all these things yet, I'm just trying, what the hell is happening here? Was it as simply as what we're seeing really isn't there? It's something completely different. Is it the house itself that's doing this? Now we find out later it's essentially what Soo-mi is seeing, and she's seeing a lot of things in this movie, but let's go back a little bit and let's talk about some of the creepy parts, I guess. I mean, we talked a little bit about when Soo-mi, we see this figure at the front of her bed. Mm-hmm. And it's that kind of creepy image of it. We see the long black hair. It's the one the image we talked about that's used a lot in these movies these days. And then it starts to, I think it doesn't get up and on its legs. I
don't know if that image is used a lot these days, but it certainly was being used a lot in the early 2000s in Korean, Japanese horror.
Korean. I mean, we see it in some. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. I don't think we see it as much these days. It's still there, but not as, it definitely had its time.
We're definitely not experts in, foreign films, especially specifically Korean horror, J-horror. So maybe that is a thing, and hopefully that's something we can discover over the years as we're doing this podcast. Honestly, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But yeah, I find it so scary that the movie is making me look at this, because it's not necessarily the fact that I don't want to look at it. It's also the fact that I know that the film is trying to scare me. So like, what the fuck are you going to be doing to get that? I'm already unnerved. What are you going to be doing to make me jump? Because I'm so used to horror movies making me jump.
Yeah.
They even though this is a very uncomfortable scene, they sort of lull you into comfortability through the uncomfortableness, if that makes sense, because something's happening, but nothing is happening suddenly.
Yeah.
So you're waiting until like, well, what's the climax of this scene?
Yeah.
And then it just kind of this movie is really smart. It just kind of gradually increases and escalates without there being like a very specific climax that makes you jump. It just makes you very, very uncomfortable.
And I prefer that than the jump scares. I'm sick of the jump scares where, we know something's in the room and they look under the bed, or they look, they do this, they do that, and then all of a sudden they look to the side and there's that face, and it's something. We see it all the time, and I'm sick of that. I like this because we know that figure is there, and it's always moving in some cockeyed way where it's not natural. That stuff always creeps me out. It's just so, the joints and the arms and the legs and the neck, it's always in some weird, it's like, okay, we know that's not natural, which is a little unsettling.
Yeah.
And then we have this, and it gets on this woman. We know it's this woman figure gets on the bed, and her head is tilted, and that's important because later on we find out it was the mother who killed herself and she hung herself. So it would make sense that her neck was broken and looked like that, But if you didn't know that, it's still creepy as hell.
Yeah, but everything needs to be motivated in a film. Otherwise, why are you putting it in your film?
Yeah.
So the movie's doing a smart thing by making sure everything is relevant to everything else in the movie. I will say, now that I'm thinking about it, what's up with the hand coming out from underneath the dress and there being blood?
Yeah. Okay. So the blood, I think, was a representation, because right after that we get the scene of the period, where Sumi sees because Soo-jung has slept in her bed because she got scared. And when Sumi gets out of bed, I think she sees blood or something like that. And
but we also know that Soo-jung is dead. So this is obviously Sumi going through it and sort of like processing it in her own way.
Yeah.
So we then see her sort of lifting up her dress in the bathroom, presumably to do that, even though we don't, put on like the pad, but we don't ever see it.
Yeah, we see her going into the medicine cabinet of her stepmother, grabbing a pad. There's some interaction with them. But yeah, when I saw the blood, I wasn't sure what that was. I just felt it was just, okay, they threw it in just be creepy. Now we can put that together with the fact that, she started her period or had her period. And the hand coming out, I don't know what that was all about. I don't know if that meant anything other than it just was a little kind of, a little scary.
I'm not sure either. Even when we're talking about it right now, I thought I'd maybe have an answer to that because I certainly didn't when I was watching the movie.
I didn't. I still really don't.
What the hell does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
Hopefully we figure it out by the end of this podcast. If not, maybe we'll revisit this question because I am very curious.
Yeah.
But yeah, that scene is scary. The very first scary scene in this movie is actually in Soo-jung's bedroom, where the door opens up and we get like a figure with the hand doing one of the which we'll later find out is just Soo-jung trying to get out from underneath the wardrobe. So it's it's very strange that we get this ghost focused perspective of a character that's already dead. That shouldn't mean anything. And in hindsight, like, why is this even in the film? This character's already passed away. This clearly contemporary. So this has happened before any of the flashbacks or the expository scenes happen. So why are we seeing it at all? Are we just led to believe that this is an excuse for Sumi to then spend more time with the sister in the bedroom as his protective agent? And basically we can just take this as more like a dream sequence just to lead to this character to spend time with Sumi, who's dealing with the trauma of losing both her mom and her sister. I'm not sure. Man. But I will say that of the scary sequences in the film, this is the one, having seen the entire movie, having pieced the puzzle together, that just doesn't really fit for me. No. I mean, the sequence itself is okay, but within the context of the movie, it's like, well, this character is dead. This character doesn't effectively exist right now. We know this isn't Sumi in Soo-jung's bed. So why is it here? Well,
but now that we're talking about this, I mean, we could argue that none of it makes sense, or why are we seeing the mother, and why are we seeing not the stepmother but the mother? Why? I mean, we could argue that none of that should be happening because they're dead. So, are you here because...
For me, it's a matter of perspective, like it's easily explained that the sequences with the stepmom are just Sumi, but anything with Soo-jung, it is clearly not Sumi and rather just sort of almost like a physical projection of her sister, right? So like there's this clear like body relationship between the stepmother and Sumi, whereas there is no sort of body relationship with the sister.
But I mean, so okay, let's throw out the stepmother because as we explained, we know the stepmother, at least the way Sumi sees her, is of course just a manifestation of that. So we know that let's just throw that out, and we don't see the true stepmother until later on in the film. So all of these things are happening in this movie. The person underneath the sink, like you said, the hand on the door. The creepy figure who we find out is the mother later on. But the mother. Why are all these things really happening? Is it because this is Sumi's guilt taking over? Or is it truly? And we find this out again later on in the film. Are these just ghosts that are trapped inside this home because of this terrible thing that had happened?
It's definitely a mixture of both. We definitely know that there are ghosts in this house because the uncle's wife sees
exactly
presumably Soo-jung. We also know that the real stepmother dies by the ghost of Soo-jung. presumably we don't actually see the death on screen.
No, yeah. Yeah.
But we also know that a lot of what happens in this movie is really just Sumi grappling with the trauma of what happened to her mom and her sister. Now, whether it's a question of guilt is open for debate, I think. I think it is. I do think because the real stepmother is saying you will regret this moment.
Yeah.
And then that Sumi learns not long after that Soo-jung was probably still alive and that she could have been saved. And that's what the stepmom was referring to.
Yeah.
So it could easily be her dealing with the fact that her stepmother's a giant cant. And I say cant as sort of like a reference to a BoJack joke where they're clearly not using the word cant, right?
Yeah, I know what
She's just a giant asshole. And the fact that maybe if she wasn't such a jerk to the stepmom, that maybe she could have also prevented the death. It could even be as simple as, why didn't I investigate that noise myself?
Well, exactly, because it was that hatred for the stepmother. You know, it was that, you know, everyone heard the noise. Every single person, even the father outside, I think the father was outside at the time, heard the noise. Everyone heard it. You're not going to go and see what's going on. But then she sees this woman, her stepmother or the soon-to-be stepmother, and then just the hatred just builds, and they have their confrontation, and instead of just going to see what was going on, I'm getting as far away from you as I can, and I think that's she knows that she probably could have saved her sister, and that guilt. And like you said, the regret just was so overwhelming. And she is, I think
that has to be it, because they must have found scratch marks on the wardrobe, you know?
Oh my God.
Like, we don't see that in the film, but we do know she's scratching at the wardrobe. So they would have easily found out that, oh yeah, she didn't immediately die. She was trying to get help for a long time.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's sad. And then, could you imagine, look, you didn't cause it, but you could have saved your sister, someone that she was super protective of, and she didn't. I couldn't live with something like that. That's horrible, and I think that's why it's who knows, over time you just start developing these feelings and these thoughts, and they just overwhelm you at some point, and then you kind of go a little nutty, right? That's essentially what happens. We know she's in the hospital. I don't know how long she was there for. Did they ever say how long she was there for? I don't know. No. But yeah, creepy wise. We talked about the kitchen. The kitchen scene was, I tell you what, I enjoyed the scene where the I think it's, let's just call her the aunt, and they're driving, and she says, yeah, I saw someone underneath the sink, and then we go back to the house, and the stepmother she's at the table, and she hears a noise, coming from the sink area, and she goes to investigate it, and then I loved the little, it was that shot where they pan over to the kitchen table, and we see a woman there with a green dress on.
Yeah, I really like that shot too, because the quote unquote stepmother is blocking the table with their head.
Yeah.
She goes down to look what's underneath the sink, and then we see that there's someone sitting at the table. That shouldn't be.
It was so just nonchalant, and I would almost argue, if you weren't paying attention, you would miss it. You would miss that, and I loved it. And then all of a sudden, we know it's not there anymore. And then, she hears some other noises, and then what does she look down? Isn't there an earring? I think it's an earring.
I think it's like a clip.
Is it a clip?
Like a hair clip.
Maybe a clip. Maybe something that the woman who was there earlier, who had the seizure, maybe lost, and she went to grab it, or just something.
I don't think it was there before. I think it's supposed to be like Soo-jung's, or maybe the mom's hair clip. It's not explained.
Yeah, and then she goes to grab it, and of course, we get the hand that comes out.
That's like the one jump scare I think in the movie.
Yeah,
there's not a lot.
No, there's there's not a lot of jump scares.
For me, if we're going to talk about uncomfortable scenes now, it would definitely be the closet scene.
Yeah.
And this is where we talk about child abuse that I feel that I personally am not equipped to talk about. But that whole scene was deeply uncomfortable where,
I didn't like that.
Where the stepmother, I mean, any sort of parental role, step or not, you're supposed to be a comforting figure for your child, and breaking down that trust. And I know these are between two characters that effectively don't exist. I don't think that matters. No. Breaking down that trust to throw your kid as a punishment into a deeply uncomfortable space that is beyond upsetting for the child is totally unacceptable, and obviously one of the worst things I've seen in in film in general, and especially this film.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the most effective / worst scene in the film for me. I was like almost cringing.
Yeah, I was
like
too.
saying like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
The entire time I was just so deeply uncomfortable.
I didn't like it either.
It's a little bit different for me too. I'm not a father. I know you are, so you can probably speak more to this than I can.
There's no way. Yeah, there's no way I would. It wouldn't matter. I don't care if you're. I just don't like I know we're saying this constantly, step in, but I mother, father. That's how I look at it. It doesn't matter. You don't do that, and that was very uneasy for me. I didn't like it. And then she just was messing with her. Almost beg. You need to say you're sorry, but beg to get out of here. And then when you say you're sorry, no, I'm going to close it back up on you, and then you're gonna. I don't like that. And I know I've seen that before, in another horror movie. I can't think of it offhand, but I don't like it.
Yeah, the sort of psychological manipulation there, like making you forgive for something you haven't done, and then punishing you anyway when you say you wouldn't. Like, there's just a level of abuse going on there that is hard to watch.
Yeah. And again, these are all, this is all in Sumi's head. That's just what's happening. And it's like, Jesus, how much, it's like this, like we said earlier, the guilt. It's like how much of this guilt is overwhelmed her that she is basically imagining all of these different scenarios and things, and it's just,
this is basically sort of a hard movie for her, like her own horror film that she's sort of making up as we're watching the movie.
Yeah,
she's
terrible.
making these hard scenes for herself. Within the context that she hates the stepmom, and that she's protective of her sister who's now dead, and I think she sort of knows that, but she hasn't come to, like, she's in denial. She hasn't.
Well, she is, because we find that there's the scene where the father, the stepmother says she hears something. The father goes to investigate, and the stepmother has two birds that she really cares for, and we see them earlier on in the cage, and even the sisters make a comment that we should kill them or let them go or something like that, and because the stepmother would be devastated, and so the father finds one of the birds dead, and so the stepmother she sees the father taking the bird out, I think, to bury it or something like that, and she's of course very upset by this, and then I think she finds the other dead bird in Soo-jung's bed.
Obviously, Sumi is the one who killed the birds.
Yeah,
I'm curious: are the birds supposed to be Sumi's, or are they supposed to be the real stepmothers?
See, that's the thing. I guess they're the real stepmothers.
I think I don't know.
I don't know either. It's again, there's a little gray area in these. We're sitting here and we're kind of just I don't know, kind of guessing on some of this stuff. We definitely know the stepmother is different than the way Sumi thinks she is, but
like Sumi isn't necessarily wrong. She's kind of right in sort of like the general context. Like come on, the stepmother led to the death of the sister. She sucks.
Absolutely.
Just because we see a show of her being nice doesn't mean she's actually cool. That's just sort of the movie sort of putting you in this, just so they can pull the rug out from you again in a few minutes. That's what the film's doing. Yeah, because they paint her different ways. When we see her towards the end in the suit, we think, okay, she's not that bad. Then, of course, what kind of person
what kind of person who is taking care of this person, this let's say the mother, and then you're having, I don't know. I mean, if you think about it, it's an affair. It's an affair. It doesn't matter whether she's dying or not. They're still married. You're having an affair with this guy, and you're taking care of his dying wife. Who the hell does that?
No, there's justification to be mad at the stepmom, but there's also a lot of justification to be mad at the dad. You spent far more time with the real mom than anyone else. We don't hold him really accountable at all. His character's strange to me throughout this. I think they did it on purpose. He's just so blasé through the whole thing. He never smiles, never nothing. It's just, well, of course he doesn't. He's kind of dealing with this. Yeah. He's still dealing with the death of his wife, I guess, but definitely his daughter, and then the fact that now he has to take care of his, his damaged daughter. Yeah. I use that kind of regrettably. Because I don't want to discount mental illness at all. And again, so when I say that, it's like, okay, well, we don't know all these things until the end. We know some things are happening, but we don't know all the, everything hasn't kind of come into place. So, but yeah, it's almost like the life has been sucked out of him. Yeah. And for good reason. Because, if you think about it, if you go back to the picture that they'd found in the real mother's little, I don't know what you call that, a little box. And it had, like we were talking earlier, it had jewelry and I think it had some other things in there, but it had a lot of pictures. And there was a picture of the father and the mother, and they looked happy, and they were in a car, and they looked so young. And in this movie, he's got the gray hair, and the girls aren't that old. I don't know, 14, 15. I'm just gonna guess. He's got the full on gray hair. He just looks like, life has just beat him up, and so I'm sure the father also feels guilt. He probably handled that situation pretty poorly. Yeah, we don't actually get to see his headspace all that much, so we don't actually know what he's thinking or feeling. We know he's exasperated throughout the entire film, and we know that he wants his daughter to be better, and that he has a lot of patience with her. But that's about it. But you're right. I don't like this idea that the father isn't held accountable. He is definitely responsible for the death of his wife. In some degree. She was dying, but still, it doesn't matter. We don't know if there was a discussion between the two of them, but the fact that the mom is killing herself because she kills herself at their engagement, there must not have been a meaningful discussion there. In fact, this is just breaking down so many ideas of what we think of like monogamy and love and how to deal with, the passing of a loved one in such a weird way. And the film doesn't really take time to explore that. It just kind of happens and we're supposed to deal with it. But when you're asking your audience to just deal with something, there's usually an expectation that it's relatable. And this isn't relatable. I don't know a lot of people who continue to live and nurse their dying spouse or ex-spouse while then pursuing a new relationship, especially a new relationship with a caregiver. Yeah. It's very, very weird. It is. Now, this confuses me a little bit. And so did you think that the stepmother was living there? Because I got the impression that she wasn't living there at all, that it was just the dad and Soo-mi. If you're talking about within the film, it was just the two of them. Yeah, just the two of them. But so I guess my question to you would be, is the dad and the stepmother not together anymore, but she's still around? I think they are together. This is where, I don't think there's good or bad people in this movie. I just think there are complicated people that are very culpable of shitty things. Yeah. I've seen all of BoJack. I'm very familiar with this idea. So I think that's the fact that I think this stepmom totally sucks. I still think there are cool things about her. And I actually do think that there might even be a part of her who wants Soo-mi to get better. Yeah, I think so too. Because I don't think it's an act when she's actually trying to get Soo-mi to feel better and, encouraging her to get to a better place in the couple scenes we see her in. But I think the reason we don't see the stepmom in the actual house is because her and the father think it's a good idea for them to be separated.
Yeah. While Soo-mi is kind of reacclimating herself to the home environment, she's just getting out of the hospital. So bringing the stepmother into the equation as well would just be, oh man.
But I do think that the stepmom and the dad are
They're
together.
still together.
That's what I think.
That's what. Okay, that makes sense. That I get.
But there must have been like some mutual decision to say, hey, Soo-mi is in a bad spot. We know there's animosity here.
Yeah.
So let's just, until she gets better, stay out.
Stay away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes sense. Yeah, I kind of thought that might have been the case, but it just, again, wasn't really explained. A lot of stuff isn't explained, and us talking about it right now, I think, we're filling in some of the cracks that, maybe we either didn't catch during the film, or maybe, reading it online. We just, but, yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, I still enjoyed the movie. I really did. There are a lot of things about the movie to like, the scene where, we see the stepmother in that bag, and she's dragging it through the hallway, and we know it's a bloodied big old bag, which, we just assume we assume at the time it's Soo-jung, or it's something. We know it's some sort of body, because it's, when she's dragging it, there's blood behind, and then I think she takes I don't know if it's like a fireplace poker or something, and she's smashing, taking out some aggression on it. Yeah,
it's deeply uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It almost reminded me of...
and I think this is actually where the movie sort of benefits from it being unexplained, because you're like, well, this is odd and crazy. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, see, that's when the movie is getting you to sort of, it's like trying to balance on one leg of your chair and try not to fall. This is where, like, it's doing that beautifully. Like, it takes me out enough to make me unnerved and off kilter. And I think that's where the obfuscation is doing a really good job. Yeah. What does it remind you of, though?
It reminds me of, do you remember Audition? Did you ever see Audition?
We watched it together. When I was like 14.
Yeah, a long time ago. And, and at the time I watched it, I'd heard good things about it, and I felt it was fairly boring.
Oh, I remember liking that movie, and I'm pretty sure, I don't think I ever rewatched it. Okay, so maybe I got 14-year-old glasses on, so maybe I would like this movie less, but I remember liking it back then.
I thought it was...
that movie freaked me out, especially with like the scene with the tongue.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the whole climax of the film was... See, the movie doesn't need to, like... if a movie, like, makes me have a physical reaction... and it's trying to do that, it's a successful film in my eyes.
Yeah.
Even if the pacing might be a little slow.
Well, the reason I bring it up is there was a scene in that movie which I thought was the best scene and the scariest scene where, and it had to do with a bag, and that's why I bring it up, because that's what this kind of reminded me of. Not exactly the same for sure, but in Audition where, the girl is waiting for a telephone call. Do you remember that scene where oh my gosh, she's waiting. She's literally almost sitting by the phone. And this is like days, it seems like, just waiting for the phone call to happen. And
I do.
Yeah. And it's so freaking, and then we see, I think there's a bag behind her and it moves or something. I think there's a body in it. And then she gets the telephone call and she just has this, oh my gosh, this just creepy, so scary, like psychopathic smile on her face, and that was honestly, I mean, that was really the only memorable scene I thought in Audition. To me, it was, I don't know, maybe if I rewatched it, maybe I'd like it more. It was a long time ago.
Well, I guess we have to rewatch it at some point.
We may have to rewatch that, but that's, I don't know what, that's, I only probably because the fact that it was dealing with bags. That's probably, but watching it today, that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of Audition. But yeah, I mean, it was, it was it's like we know there's something inside of it, and then I think don't we find out later on that, again, of course, because we know none of this is really happening. It's, you know, Soo-mi is imagining everything, and it was as simple as it was a bag, but it wasn't like some sort of doll.
Yeah, it was a porcelain doll.
A porcelain doll that, you know.
Yeah, Sumi is Sumi's going through a bunch of shit, and she's sort of processing this trauma in her own way, and that's sort of fighting with herself. And maybe I don't think she's mad at the bag itself or what's in the bag, but rather just this idea that the contents of the bag might hold her dead sister, and that she's pissed, upset that her sister's dead at all. And the hitting it with the poker is just, no, I don't accept this at all. Yeah. That's her dealing with her rage, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because I mean, we find out later, of course, it's, we know it's a doll in there, but I mean, there's that scene where she sees the bag in the hallway, and she's doing everything she can to try to open it up, and she can't. Oh, she cannot get it open. She's looking for a knife. She's looking for scissors. She can't. And that idea, I actually like the scene because it's we think a bag is so simple to open, and at any time you could probably find anything to open it. I mean, you could use a key to open up something, or you could tell like the jagged end and the jagged part of a key you could use to open several things. And here she is, and she's got this. We know there's blood on the floor. It's the size of a body. She's assuming it's her sister. She's freaking out. She can't find anything to open this bag, and it just it's like this moment of oh man, it's almost like you're helpless. You can't. And to me, it reminded me of almost like a dream. Where you have a dream, and you want to do something, but it's almost like like you're running away from someone and you can't move because you're in quicksand, or it's like that. It was just felt so helpless, and that's what it reminded me of. It almost reminded me of a dream, like anyone could have, and it may not be a bag on a ground, but it could be just something that that should be so easy for you to be able to open or run away from, or whatever it is, and you can't do it. And that's what I felt with that scene. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, the performance in that scene was killer. In fact, the performance in this whole movie for everybody is really good. Everyone was casted very well. Yeah. But for that particular scene, my reading of it is she couldn't find anything sharp because the dad hit all the sharp objects.
Hit all the sharp. You think it was as simple as that?
That was my reading of it. She had to search really hard to find anything sharp.
So I just had this really cool, deep, realization, and then you just squashed it with,
no, bro.
She's crazy, and dad doesn't want to be stabbed during the middle of the night.
No, it's more about. I'm kidding. I know, but it's like self-harm. I think that the dad is scared that she might self-harm.
Yeah, that's true.
She's not in a good spot.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take away from your point at all.
I know,
she could have easily unwrapped the rope. But she couldn't do that.
She tried. She couldn't get it. That's what I'm saying. It was no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't. In fact, I felt that as she was trying to unravel it, it was tightening more. When you're I've done this before, where I get home and I'm exhausted, and I want to take off. I got to take off my shoes, but I want to untie them, and they don't untie right, and then they knot up, and then you're pissed, and you go to like pull on it, and it just tightens it more, and you get frustrated. That's what was happening here. Is like she couldn't get it. She couldn't get it open, and it felt like whatever was wrapped around the bag was tightening more. Yeah. So, where are we at now?
I mean, we've talked about this entire movie.
I mean, we've jumped around quite a bit, and hopefully we haven't confused everyone. But I think we've touched on, most of it. I mean, we get to that. We get to the ending, where, we know, Sumi has this disorder. She's manifested this version of her stepmother, and she has manifested her dead sister. And we know that that a lot of this stuff could have been avoided if the stepmother,
this could have been avoided if people were less shitty to each other.
Yeah, just really, and I get it, and like we said, I mean, we understand why everyone feels the way they feel.
Yeah,
we can't argue with any of it.
People are complicated, and shitty things happen, and what are you gonna do? The world would be a perfect place if we were all very communicative and not shitty to each other.
Yeah.
But sometimes I guess that's unavoidable in life. I mean,
it is.
You're not going to be perfect. The people you're around aren't going to be perfect.
That's just reality, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we come across probably crappy people every single day. It's just the way it is. It's unfortunate, and that's what we see here. All of this could have been avoided. The mother's death. Look, that was inevitable. Whether it was by her hanging herself or just dying from whatever illness she had, she was going to die. But father was wrong in what he did. So was the stepmother, the nurse. Sumi could have maybe acted a little differently, and but we know her guilt, remorse. It took her over. I mean, she went batty, because of it. She felt so much guilt from the death of, I would say more so her sister, because she could have prevented that, and so that's So
yeah, we've talked about this whole movie now. I think we're of the opinion we both like this movie.
I did like it,
which is kind of a shock. I know you don't like reading subtitles.
No, I don't. I hate reading subtitles because I always feel like it takes away from stuff that's happening within the movie, because I got to look to the bottom of the screen and read, and I don't want to miss something that's happening in the background. The good thing with this is there wasn't a lot of dialogue. I could say the same thing for, we talked about high tension. High tension is one.
Sure.
There's not a lot of dialogue in high tension.
No, so, and I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
So I'm okay with some subtitles.
I think it's something you get used to over time. I've just seen so much anime at this point.
It's true. Yeah. I don't hate it. I don't hate it, but if I had a preference, I don't want to see subtitles. I want to know what exactly they're saying, and hell, I would even go as far as say dub it, which I know takes. I know. Listen to me though. I know, but hold on a second.
No, I'm not saying dubs outright are bad, but a lot of dubs just don't really do credit to the original performances.
It does. It takes away from the original performances. I agree 100%. But because I grew up on those old, kung fu movies from the 70s and 80s.
Let me just pop in here real fast, bro. That's totally different. That's just so different. Now, I'm not an expert on the subject, but like those dubs almost sort of reveled in like campiness, and like they didn't really take it too seriously.
All right, yeah, you got me there.
And what if you were trying to watch a dub of this movie and there was mismatch in dialogue? The performances were like they just hired a $200 actor off the street, said, "Hey, can I get you for a couple hours? And can you do some lines for me?" Like, I'm not saying that's how it was done.
I know
that's how it feels. It was done.
You're right. You're right in that point. But what I'm telling you is, when I watched those as a youngster, and I know they're quite different. I know the kung fu versus something like this. The psychological horror drama is quite different. But I didn't mind it then. It was fine for me with this. I felt there wasn't a ton of dialogue, and when dialogue was happening, I didn't feel like I was missing anything from the movie itself.
Right.
But
I'm giving you a hard time.
I know you are. I know you are, because you know how much I don't want to read. I just want to enjoy the movie itself. Like for instance, speaking of dubbed and Kung Fu Hustle. Kung Fu Hustle was a fantastic movie.
That movie has a shit ton of dialogue, though.
It does have a shit ton of dialogue, and I've watched both versions. And I've watched the subtitle version, and I've watched the dubbed version, and most of the voices. Some of the voices are okay in the dubbed version, and some are really, really bad. But I would prefer that, because I know what kind of movie I'm watching. I'm watching a campy kung fu, and it's truly a campy, comedic, kind of funny, awesome kung Kung Fu movie. That's what we're talking about here.
I wish that movie was a horror film just so we could talk about it on this podcast.
That movie's badass.
I love that movie.
I freaking love that movie.
Yeah.
But the point is, I've watched both of them, and I hate to say I prefer the dub because I don't want to. I just want to enjoy what's happening on the screen. I don't want to read stuff. But this was fine. I think we've rambled way too much about subtitles. But
I think that's my bad. I shouldn't have said anything.
That's okay.
That wasn't even my point of this film.
I know, but
I just wanted to say, Dad, you like this movie?
But I did. I like this movie.
I like this movie too.
I did. I liked this a lot. I thought it was good.
Now, did you like this as a horror movie or did you like this more as a drama? Because this is a movie he's doing both.
I'm split.
Really?
I'm split about, I don't know, maybe
if you're
50,
split, then that's, I think, a big compliment.
It is.
Because that's a big compliment for the horror side. And this movie only has a few horror scenes in it.
Yeah. No, I like I said, I think they did a good job with it. I mean, I hope it doesn't come across that we felt there was a lot of problems. I mean,
The thing is there's a couple of movies we talked about now where I specifically have pointed out a lot of issues.
Yeah.
But for this particular movie, we're bringing up a lot of stuff because I think overall we liked this movie.
Yeah.
And we're just the faults were so unfocused because everything else was just so good. So the faults themselves just kind of stood out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like this movie a lot too.
No, and I would definitely, to any of our listeners, I would definitely recommend this. I would recommend go watching this.
If you haven't seen this and you've listened to this podcast and you're still interested, please go see it.
Yeah, I mean, everything that's gonna happen in the movie, so it's not gonna be a surprise. And this is one of those movies. This is not a slasher, so it's not like a killer running around, and slicing everybody up. This is a thinker, and it has a surprise ending. And so we probably completely ruined it for you, but still check it out because I definitely think it's worth a watch.
If this is at all interesting to you, you'll enjoy this movie.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. I guess I think that's going to do it for today's episode.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Come back next week. I think we're going to be doing My Bloody Valentine because we got Valentine's Day rolling up. So we felt My Bloody Valentine, the 1981 movie, not that remake from I don't know how many years ago, but the 1981 slasher My Bloody Valentine. We'll be doing that next week with our guest Morris Hoylman. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow us at both Twitter and Instagram at Ear for Fear. You can also check out our website, earforfear.com. There you can purchase merch and stay up to date on current episodes as well as news and events. We hope you come back and get an earful. See you soon.